Hello, everybody. This is Daryl Pillsbury, along with somebody new. Joe Bushy is here. Vita Crochetta, my partner, had to go south. He's in Hartford, Connecticut now, so we will now have Joe here doing the show with us. We're glad to bring back Marijuana Resolve, and you can get a hold of us at marijuanaresolve.org. And for today's show, we are very excited to have Robert Platshorn here. And Joe, why don't you tell us a little bit about what he's about, and then we'll let him start describing himself.
Well, Robert Platshorn, well, I don't know that we got enough time to tell everything there is to know about him. We maybe better let him tell a little bit more, but he is, by many stories, America's most written about marijuana smuggler, and he served the longest sentence handed down for a single offense, first offense, nonviolent crime. And at, I believe, age 39 still, right, Robert? You're here with us today from West Palm Beach, Florida. Is that correct?
At age 70, yes.
70, right. And how you doing today?
I'm doing all right for age 70.
You look good, Robert. You look good.
You sure do.
You notice I'm wearing a sweatshirt. It's a freezing day here in Florida. It's not even 70.
Oh, wow. No.
Well, we trade you.
Yeah, this is an unusually cold day. It's about 68 degrees, beautiful sunshine, a little bit windy, and nice place to be in this time of year.
I'd agree with that. Now, listen, I just happened to catch one of your videos that you are putting out there with, what's the name of it again, Joe?
Should Grandma Smoke Pot.
Should Grandma Smoke Pot. And I watched that last night, and I got to tell you something. That was, number one, a great idea to do, and number two, very well presented. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. You know, I'm an old infomercial producer. I was making infomercials before Ron Popeil or Billy Mays. In fact, if you've read my book, you know there's an inscription by Billy Mays that says I was a legend in the pitch business. And when I became an activist, especially when I first went out doing book signings for my book, Black Tuna Diaries, I went to Cannabis Fest and Cannabis Cup and Hemp Fest and Hemp Stalk. And while I was at Hemp Fest, I had an audience of about 2,000 people. I was up on stage, and they were cheering and laughing and clapping for my stories. Lots of people buying my book. But I looked out at the audience, and I realized I was wasting my time because, like most activists, I was preaching to the choir. Everybody out in that audience was already on my side.
Yeah.
And while I'm up there talking, it occurred to me that all the big organizations like NORML and ASA and MPP and all of the other activist organizations really don't talk to anybody but other activists. And I'm the right person to tell the story. I'm an old pitchman. I looked at the exit polls in California after Prop 19 failed, their legalization effort. And it became obvious that there was only one single reason that Prop 19 didn't pass, and that was seniors. According to the exit polls, seniors voted 65% against legalization. Now, that's my generation. We invented marijuana as it's known today. And when I took a good look at why that happened, it was because nobody was talking to seniors. And even in California, where they've had medical marijuana for so long, the vast majority of seniors have absolutely no knowledge about what it can do and why it's so valuable to a senior. So I started the Silver Tour. And in the beginning, I was doing live shows for audiences of 100 to 200 seniors at senior communities, especially down in Florida. We've got hundreds of senior communities where people over 55 live. They play golf, they play tennis, they're active, and they've all got a clubhouse. and I started putting on live shows. And the shows were really well received. They weren't seminars or lectures or panels. I would have a doctor and a nurse and patients and lawyers and legislators come up and talk about what was needed and how they could get it. And an audience of 200 strangers became an audience of 200 supporters. Uh, it got tremendous publicity. It was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. They wrote a great story. And, you know, that's a very conservative publication. CNN Money came to one of my shows and taped it and interviewed people coming in and people going out. And they saw how people's minds were changed just by giving them the information. Uh, you know, this past Sunday's New York Times had a great article about seniors smoking marijuana. And it's becoming more and more an acceptable subject for seniors. When I started this 2 years ago, seniors wouldn't talk about marijuana. They didn't want to discuss marijuana. And even if they were smokers, they didn't want their neighbors to know. Today, thanks to the Silver Tour, thanks to all the great publicity we've had, and you know, last December I was on the Daily Show, Jon Stewart's Daily
Saw
Show.
that too. That was
Yeah,
good.
we saw that. Yeah, that was great.
Uh-oh.
Saw that.
Oh.
And that makes seniors comfortable with the subject, whereas they weren't before. So I realized I could only put on maybe one big show every 5 or 6 weeks because it takes that long to arrange everybody's schedule and advertise the show and scrape up the money for a free buffet, because that's how you fill seats with seniors. You give them a free buffet, it doesn't matter what you're going to talk about, they're going to show up. And as a pitchman, all I want are people to show up. You know, years ago when I used to be on the fairs selling Ginzu knives or Vita mixes, the people who would come into the booth and listen to me weren't people particularly interested in listening to me or buying anything. They were just curious as to what was going on. And that's all a really good pitchman needs. So when I made Should Grandma Smoke Pot, the idea was to put it on commercial TV stations all over the country and just push our movement over the top, educate and motivate. I knew what I was doing when I produced the show, and the shows had tremendous compliments and reviews. You know, the first place I went to get the show okayed to air it was the Hearst Broadcast Group. Now, if you saw the show, you know I tell the story about how it was Hearst who actually had cannabis prohibition invoked so that he could save his pulpwood forest.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'd be reading papers on hemp if it wasn't for Hearst. They wanted to stop the hemp industry, not marijuana. And even though I tell that story in the show, the attorneys for Hearst Broadcasting said they'd love to have the show. Of course, we got to pay for the time. And they thought it was the classiest, best produced issue show that they've ever seen.
Wow.
And whenever we get enough money, it goes up on another station. The paid programming is paid for by donations and contributions to the Silver Tour. We're showing right now in Texas, in Florida. We've been on the air in Oregon and Arkansas, and we'd like to be on the air everywhere when we can raise enough money.
Even
And
Vermont.
by the way, huh?
Even Vermont.
Even Vermont.
That's right.
We can get on public access TV, great, but let's be honest, the mainstream we want to reach is not necessarily the public access audience.
Right.
We want to reach the people who are watching reality shows. Those we have to educate. And I those programming spots at rates that are only available to infomercial producers. I just bought 30, almost 40 half hours on on a Tampa TV station for about bucks a half hour.
How much?
Now, about $100.
Yeah.
Those normally sell for $500 to $1,500. If a local person wants to run programming or an agency wants to buy it for uh, political programming, they pay anywhere from 500 to 1,500. Infomercials are a different category. And as an old infomercial producer, I have access to the auction process, and only infomercial producers can buy through the auction. And so I can buy time at a ridiculously cheap price. You know, it costs $1,500 to put on a live Silver Tour show, and for $1,500, I could show that 15 times to maybe 1 million people total.
Right.
And so that's, you just can't do it any less expensively. And the more donors we get, the more we're going to see grandma on commercial TV all over the country.
Well, that's something that maybe we should put up. One of the things we're going to put up then on this screen is a way to maybe donate to that cause right there, because I would also like to see it out more because of the
Yeah,
fact it was so well put together.
The Silver Tour, which sponsors grandma, I mean, that's our organization, is a 501c3 nonprofit. So sizable donations are tax deductible. They all are. And maybe one day we'll get a whale, a big donor, and we'll really be going. Because I'd like to put grandma on network TV, and I can do it pretty reasonably, a couple of $1,000 per half hour, 2, 3, 4,000, and reach millions every time it's shown. But you know, there's never been an outreach to the mainstream. No one has ever gone out and tried to educate the general public and counteract all those years of lies by the DEA, by the government, by that evil organization, DARE.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things, Robert, why we're doing what we're doing here. Marijuana Resolve was started up in 2010 for this purpose, to start making people more aware. I could tell you, as a person who came out and let the area know here that I smoke and that I enjoy it, the amount of people that have told me thank you, and you know, some people turn the other way now, think I'm just a bad person, but I still run a heat fund that provides fuel oil to people in need. I mean, I still do a lot of the stuff I've always done, except I personally am not a drinker, and I like to smoke marijuana. And I can't believe I have to be a criminal. And Robert, that's one of the reasons I no longer serve in the state house in the state of Vermont, is because I am a pot smoker, and I just didn't want to break the law. I guess.
You know, I bet you've got a lot more people pat you on the back than turn away. It's amazing. Even down here in Florida, where the politics are so conservative, I addressed the legislators 3 years, not long after I had gotten out of prison. And I talked to them about medical marijuana and the need for seniors. And there were, I think, 16 of them sitting at the dais up on the stage. And without exception, they all had their head down. Nobody would look me in the eye. Nobody wanted to even acknowledge the subject. It seems when I was invited to speak, they didn't understand what normal meant and what I was going to talk about. I figured I wasted my time, but I made a pitch. As I turned to walk out the door, a woman ran up and grabbed me by the sleeve and said, "Mr. Platshorn, please, could you stay a little longer?" I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, I'm Representative Jeff Clemens, PA, and he just texted me from the dais that he might be interested in doing a bill. Jeff was a brand new rep at the time, and he did a bill, put it in, never even got to committee. It never had co-sponsors. It never had a companion bill in the Senate. But the following year, he renewed it and got a lot of support and had a companion bill. And then he ran for the state Senate and won. Jeff is probably one of the most popular legislators in the state right now. And we've got a great bill in the Senate and one in the House of Reps. And if anything, it actually worked in his favor. One of the things that really annoys me is that so many people are afraid to come out of the closet.
Yeah.
When they finally do, they realize that there was no reason to be afraid. But if you won't stand up and use your own name, then you can't be counted. And if you can't be counted, you just don't count in the fight, no matter how badly you want to see good legislation. Unless you're willing to stand up, give somebody your name, put it on a petition, tell your legislator you're not going to vote for them unless they support this type of legislation, then it doesn't happen. And it's only those who come out into the open that get something done.
Yeah.
So what's right?
Absolutely. Where do you see this all going? Not just for Florida, but for the United States as a whole. Do you think we'll ever get to the tax and regulate position, or what do you think? What do you think will happen between now and the next presidential election? And how important do you think an issue this will be then?
I think we're in the same position that alcohol was when prohibition was repealed. When the first state said that they were going to repeal alcohol prohibition, which was New York, President Harding said they come down to New York hard. You want to punish the state, you can't do it. New York said, well, you know what New York says. And they repealed prohibition. Then Kansas was next. And by the time they hit 17 states, the federal government was ready and able to repeal prohibition. The success in Colorado and Washington has had a tremendous effect already. I mean, look at the number of states that are actually proposing legalization in their legislatures rather than on the ballot, or proposing to put something on the ballot. That would have never happened without Colorado and Washington. I think the ball is rolling down the hill and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I really don't know how they could stop it. The states have been willing to fight the feds. California has put in suits against the feds. Colorado has. And, I'm really amazed that we're still waiting for Eric Holder to come out with a statement. I they really know whether to poop or go blind.
Right.
But coming, and I believe Obama could be the guy who, maybe toward the end of his term, like he did with gay marriage and with the immigrant issue, come out and do something on his own or get behind something very strongly. He's not to change positions, although in the beginning it seemed his position was pretty right. And then later on, he kind of fudged it and said, maybe legalization isn't the answer.
Yeah.
But I'm the right person to come out and say, look, this is the right thing to do. I've thought about this is what we're going to do. They've got to do something. It's out. We're going to have the first cannabis cup in Denver.
Yes.
Just
April 20th, not far away.
the government won't let me go.
Yeah.
Right.
The government doesn't let me leave South Florida to participate in any way in the legalization of cannabis.
Imagine
That's
that.
for for my activism. When I first came out, I was able to travel all over the country. I had no problem. And I was doing book signings for Black Tuna Diaries and speaking engagements. That's all been totally taken away from me. I'm back 700 bucks a month Social Security because I traveled to where I could do book signings and uh, talk to people about the movie Square Grouper. I don't know if you guys have seen that. It's been on Showtime for
Right.
months.
Yep.
Uh,
I haven't caught it. Have you, Daryl?
Yes, I caught part of it,
Yeah.
which I thought was pretty cool. To be honest with you.
it's a cool
Yeah, I
movie.
mean, I like, what you did. I mean, you paid the price for what you did, Robert, for 30 years, but it's something that intrigues a lot of people. I mean, I don't know how many people have ever thought about doing something like that, but, I mean, hey, it is a life that some people think about.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, hey,
Old,
ooh,
the
we
old
lost.
smugglers back in South Florida in the late 70s. And it's a story of three smuggling groups: the Zion Coptic Church, which used it for religious purposes, but were big time smugglers. The Black Tuna Gang, of course, that was me.
Mhm.
And Everglades City, which was a whole town on the edge of the Everglades that was involved in smuggling. It's a great movie, and it just keeps picking up steam. It's been out for a year and a half, and it becomes more and more popular. And if anybody would like a signed copy of the movie or a signed copy of my book, Black Tuna Diaries, here's the commercial. You can go to thesilvertour.org, the same place you're going to go and donate and help put grandma on the air, and go to the stash house. You can order a copy of Black Tuna Diaries or a copy of Square Grouper. I will sign it myself before I send it out. I'm also the shipping department and the sign department.
Chef, cook, and bottle
Uh,
washer.
Hey, one of the reasons I believe that this is gonna be done is even your conservative folks. It's about money, and the amount of money by legalizing marijuana, and the amount of money you save. I sat on the corrections committee in the state of Vermont, saw how much money was being spent on just people putting away for marijuana use. It was absurd. The amount of money that states can pull in and save is astronomical, and it can go for so many other good causes that I think, Robert, that's going to be the overwhelming thing that finally gets us over the hump.
oh, it absolutely will. I mean, Colorado is such a great example for the other states. Even when they just had medical, they were able to pay budget shortfalls out of the taxation and license fees for medical marijuana. And it made a big difference in the state. And 8 years of success with medical marijuana and no substantial problems got the population of Colorado ready to accept legalization. They realized it just didn't cause problems. It didn't make cannabis usage amongst teenagers, the rate never went up. In fact, in most areas where they have legal medical, teenage use went down. So there's been good examples set, and states need that money now more than ever, especially Florida. You have no conception of what Florida spends on incarcerating people for possession or small sales of cannabis. It's in the millions and millions, and we've got an overcrowded prison system. Uh, the governor just tried to sell the whole prison system to the private prisons, which is really our nation's shame. The
Yep.
it's just I never believed we'd have something like private prisons for profit in this country. Do you know we're losing more good paying manufacturing jobs to American prison industries than we are to China?
Listen,
And
that was a big, sorry, Robert, but that was a big point. That's a good point to bring up. We to have your prisoners do something. We actually had a part of the prison system that made desks and chairs. And we ended up taking care of all the local schools in the state of Vermont because it was much cheaper for them. And what you just brought up is one of the big issues we had. There was a lot of people came out were mad because they could sell it for so much cheaper, and then we had the country inns that got mad at us too because of other issues. So you brought up a very good point that I don't think anybody realizes is that is one of the big things in a prison environment because it gives the prisoners something to do and it's very cheap labor.
Yeah, and what people really don't realize is that our criminal penalty laws are being written by the private prison corporations.
They got lobbyists sitting in those committees every day. We didn't have anybody else in there, but they had lobbyists Correctional Institute of America had lobbyists in our committee every single day.
Yeah, and they've got even more influence through an organization called ALEC, ALEC, where they've actually written the federal criminal penalties for drugs, especially marijuana. You know, the people they like most in private prisons or any prison industry, and I spent many years in the feds, are marijuana offenders, drug offenders in general, because they're not violent. They just want to do their time and get out. Most have no criminal backgrounds and don't want to return to a criminal life. So they make the best employees and least disruptive for prison industries. And when it comes to private prisons, they don't want to let those people go. They find ways to cheat them out of their good time, to keep them under their supervision. And in prison industries, even when they're out on parole, because the private prison industries have gone into the probation and parole supervision business and still run industries. Right. And we'll have no conception of the number of job losses, good manufacturing jobs, phone room jobs that have gone to private prisons and public prisons. Yeah. You know, it used to be the federal prison industries weren't allowed to produce anything that competed with private industry.
That's why they did.
That was their charter. Today, that charter has gone right out the window, and they're producing stuff for the military that should be produced privately. And very honestly, prison products are not up to snuff quality-wise. And when you think about them making wiring harnesses and vests and helmets for the Army, I just shiver because I know what percentage could never pass an inspection.
That's for sure. Hey, listen, Robert, we got about a minute left here to wrap up. Is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
No, just support the Silver Door. Buy some books. They make great gifts. I'll sign them all. It was really fun talking to you guys. I think you realized that all you got to do is point me at a microphone and I'm in love.
We're going to have you on again, Robert. We do this show monthly, and we do a couple of them, so we'll probably ask you to come on again. It was great talking with you, and we wish you all the best.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on, guys. Take care.
Very good. Thanks very much for being our guest. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So, I guess that's it, Joe, for Joe and me, Daryl. We'll see you next time on Marijuana Resolved. And thank you, Vita. Thank you, Paul, for being part of it. And thanks for watching out there. We'll see you next time.